Colin, tell me, how did you guys break into the category you're in, and how has that changed over the years? What were you doing back then versus now?
We started in 2012, and we were an email marketing platform that plugged into web and mobile apps when nobody else was doing that. And we were asking for this big behavior change from marketers. And rather than saying, "Here's a form, go put it on your website," we said, "Integrate and send us all your data. And whatever you're sending to your analytics tool, send that to us too, because you never know what you're going to want, what data you're going to want to use to trigger a message." Um, and so that was a big differentiator in the very early days. The other thing that we did and we promised on day one is that we'd send messages when people didn't do something. And so we'd have some customer sending us 500,000 API requests a day, and we needed to receive and process every single one of those in order to confidently know that someone didn't do something. And so, a lot of even analytics tools at the time, they would sample the data to show you charts. We couldn't sample. We had to, with an extremely high degree of confidence, know we received all of your data so that we could know to send the email uh, when something didn't happen. And that
Mhm.
forced us in the super early days to get really good at processing a lot of data, and really good at segmentation and triggering of messages. And if you look across the marketing space today, there's still only a handful of companies who can process data at the scale and reliability that we can.
Right. So when you entered, then you had a strong product-based differentiation.
Hmm. Yeah, and part of that was, naively, we didn't really know the space. We just knew that we were working at a tech company, and we were trying to use sort of a uh, like SendGrid for transactional messages. We were trying to use MailChimp for marketing messages. And that didn't seem like the right way to do it when you have a web or mobile app. It
Right.
seemed like there was this sort of place where the marketers didn't have control over the content of transactional messages. And they also struggled to send newsletters because their list was always out of date. And so by kind of connecting and tightly coupling the marketing tool with the app, we're able to sort of sync the user data across, so it was always up to date, always fresh.
And so, how has that changed over the years? And what is the game you're playing and trying to win now?
Yeah, so what we quickly realized was, and I think we knew this on day one, that email wasn't the end game. Really, our customers needed to communicate with their audience on lots of different channels. And so we started expanding into other channels. We started adding other types of messages. And today, our focus area today is really on like tech savvy marketers. So we over time we've built a more and more flexible product that serves more knowledgeable, uh, expert people. And we took the approach that we didn't see a lot of businesses in the market taking, that rather than dumb down our product to sort of meet the kind of lowest common denominator customer, we'd rather educate up our customers, help them become better, more savvy marketers, and use a more sophisticated product like us to actually accomplish the build the campaigns that they wanted to build and connect with the customers that they have in the way that they were trying to connect.
Hmm. So, tech savvy marketers as your target audience is that how you would say that's how you differentiate? Because like the category that you're in, marketing automation or now customer engagement, is just there's a lot of players in there. It's
Mhm.
very saturated.
Yeah, a lot of players. And so the way we sort of look across the market, down market, it's a lot of the players are kind of very oversimplified, and they do that sort of dumbing down of the product that I
Yeah.
described. And then if you look up, there's amazing capabilities that are only accessible with a really big enterprisey contract. And so what we wanted to do was bring the functionality that you could only get by signing a contract with one of these enterprise solutions. We wanted to bring that to early to mid stage businesses and have them really start on a tool that will help them grow rather than scale out of this very kind of uh, SMB or or almost like consumery oriented low end tool. And we decided to build enterprise functionality, but charge the same way that the sort of low end tools would charge, and make it a really great place for companies to grow.
So how if your game is to you're making, let's say, advanced level feature set available, democratization play in a
Hmm.
way.
Hmm.
Um, where are you investing here? So are you still doubling down on making the best possible product? Are you also trying to win on other arenas?
I'd say in the early days, all of our we didn't have sales, we didn't have customer success, we didn't have any professional services, we didn't do all of the kind of extra stuff, and we put all of our energy into building product. And the business has grown since then, and we're still putting a lot of energy into product, but we've also built these other teams. And now when a customer comes in, especially at our higher end, so around $10,000 a year, a lot of times they don't have the resources on their team to do the initial implementation, and so we can sell them professional services,
Hmm.
and a salesperson will help them kind of complete that sale.
How much of your revenue, percentage wise, is from those services?
Um, it's very on a percentage basis. I think it must be like 3-4%, something like that. So it's
So
it's
is that more like an adoption play and a
yep,
retention play rather than revenue?
exactly, yeah. The whole purpose of having a services organization in our company is to accelerate uh, customers getting to value inside the product. It's not to make money in on services, and so it's a really important part of our organization. And we've had some great successes by having services there, but we're not a services company.
Gotcha. That makes perfect sense. Yeah.
And
Uh,
and I think like the one of the approaches that we've taken. So we're a globally distributed team, and we're trying to compete at the low end of the high end. It's kind of one way to think of it. And so one of the ways we use that strength of being globally distributed is that we have customer success managers that are in the same time zones and countries as our customers are, without having to establish an office there. And that means that we can offer a great customer experience at a lower annual contract value than upstream competitors can. And so a lot of times, like dollar for dollar, we're providing more service, a better customer experience, and more knowledgeable people to interact with than both upmarket and downmarket from us.
but wouldn't that be kind of a easy to replicate? Because now everybody is remote first, and everybody can hire in the Philippines or Bulgaria and Bolivia. So
Yeah, I mean, I think it's actually pretty hard to run and build a distributed company. We're 80 something people now, and there's definitely challenges along the way. It's I think making that transition late is really tricky. And the other mistake I see companies make is, especially when you're talking about like technical support or the services side of things, you can essentially like uh, even if they're reporting to your even if they're part of your company, if you have a satellite office whose purpose is services, they often feel like second class people in your company. The way we've built a distributed and remote company is that ideally everyone who's in the team regardless of the country they're in, regardless of the role they're in, feels like they're part of the team, and that there's not a center. We're trying to sort of remove any centers of gravity in the company that something like a an office creates.
Mm,
And
yeah.
I think that's it's actually, you can get the benefits if you're a company who's like, oh well, we'll just hire a bunch of people all over the world. You're not likely to be successful doing that, because you won't create the type of culture of excellence that um, I think is really hard to replicate in a distributed team unless you've done it very deliberately from the beginning.
Totally. When we went all remote overnight, when COVID hit at CXL, it was like, well, we'll just transfer everything to Slack and Zoom, and it's business as usual. We've had remote people before, but then didn't fucking work. I mean, to an extent, but like many problems, many problems. It's just, yeah, it seems easy superficially,
Mhm.
but it's not.
Yeah, I think a lot of things bubble under the surface, and what you learn is how to replicate the water cooler, how to make sure that people are talking when they need to talk, and you've got enough social stuff going on when the team's all remote.
Yeah, yeah. Well, tell me more about that competing on product. Uh, what is the moat there? So you have a cultural moat. It's hard to replicate, and you're building a product for advanced marketers, so type of buyers. So, do you have an innovation advantage here? How are you thinking about this?
Yeah, I think um, for us, the pace of innovation is probably the most important thing in the company, and pace of innovation can create a moat. And so, actually, taking a bit of a step back in the space that we're in, processing and dealing with terabytes and terabytes of customer data is hard, and acting on that data to send emails, push notifications, SMSs reliably so that people are getting, that there's a sort of cheesy phrase, right message at the right time. Like, that's actually pretty hard when you're dealing with many customers, multi-tenant infrastructure. Someone's going to like start essentially accidentally DOSing your infrastructure as they're sending in data because, they're having a really big day in their business. And so to that, things like that can affect how the system performs for other people. And so there is a moat around technologically. How do you support thousands of customers all sending in this like flood of data into the system at all times? But then what do you do with the data? How do you act on it? What are the options that people have for segmentation? How are they What are the workflows that they can build? How can they use that data to sort of automate things both in their messaging and in their business? And for us, what we've realized is that people always want to do more with their customer data and the data that they have in customer IO, and it's really on us to figure out how to keep meeting the growing demands and needs of customers. And that's why pace of innovation is such a critical thing for us. And I think the over time, one of the trends in the market that we're seeing is that the like tools that only really do that people are expecting more out of their tools, and the tools that do one thing mediocrely, in a mediocre way, I don't know if mediocrely, I don't think that's a word, in a mediocre way, they're gonna lose. And so you really need to do more for your customers because they're expecting more out of all of their SaaS products. And yeah, so we get continually pushed by our customers to do more. Um, and I can give an example if you like.
Sure.
Yeah, so one of the things recently, actually one of the changes in the market over the past few years, is the growing prevalence of data warehouses. And so what we started to see was our most advanced customers were sending webhook data from Customerio into their data warehouse, and they were combining it with other data sources to try and analyze the performance of their messaging campaigns. And so, we said, okay, well, we think we can do a better job than that. Why don't we just connect directly to the data warehouse, and then we'll just sync the data for them. And so we built that first, had some customers running on that for a while, and then we just released a UI that lets them configure a bunch of different data warehouses themselves. And so that's like one tiny corner of our product. And there's so many things like that that I think people really view, especially a customer engagement platform, people view that as like the center of uh, of their like communication stack with their customers, and so they're just expecting you to connect with everyone and do more with the data that's in your product.
So there's a, as I understand, strong moat for new entrants. So it's hard to come from zero and build something that you've built. There's a lot of engineering hours, know-how in there. What about the big guys in the category, like people with deep pockets, strong engineering teams? So whatever innovative stuff you're doing, can't they replicate it? Have they copied you already?
I mean, I think so. There's definitely a bunch of big players with deep pockets, uh, and the one that I always like to think about as an example here, and this is probably most helpful for other people starting a business, right? Like if you look at who's already there and who their customers are, take Mailchimp for example.
Yeah.
Um, when we looked at Mailchimp and we said, well, how well does Mailchimp serve web and mobile app companies? And our conclusion was like not very well. And the needs are so specific, and there's such a small percentage of Mailchimp's revenue that they will never serve those companies. But we think that more and more of the world is going to have a web or mobile app. More and more businesses are, and so we think that that's kind of where the puck is going. But Mailchimp is never going to like shift their entire business to focus on that, because it would
Totally.
mean jeopardizing their core. And so I think when you look across the space, like, and then I think the same thing happens at the high end. If you look at traditional marketing automation, they were focused on um, like form capture, and fill in this form and you can download this PDF, right?
Hmm.
That's sort of how I think of traditional marketing automation.
Right.
They're
Scripting.
part of the high touch sales process. So like you don't actually create an account with a product. You download the PDF, and then a salesperson starts following up with you. Then you talk to the salesperson a little bit, and then you buy the product, and then you get a login from after you sign the contract. And we just thought that neither of those models were going to sort of change on a dime and say, no, actually, this this is the future, so we're going to bet everything on the future. So it's much easier for us as a new company to say, hey, this model of creating an account and engaging your audience who has an account in with your web or mobile app, that's the future, and we're just going to bet on that on day one.
Gotcha. Tell me, how are you thinking about how often are you looking at like what the competitors are doing versus you just focus on your customers and what your advanced level users want from you?
I try not to. I think it's like the hardest thing as a CEO, or the owner of a company, right? Like you're always in the back of your head. There's always this little voice that's like, oh, what do they know that we don't? And so there's a temptation that to look at what customers or what competitors are doing. Um, but to be honest, like we really don't let it guide the decisions that we make. And we try to have it be really driven by what our customers are telling us and what we're seeing in the market as well. And that's
Mm.
kind of that's worked really well for us, and it's also led us to build things that we don't see anywhere else in the market, and to build capabilities that other people haven't built. and that's sort of helped build a technology moat. Um, but it's also meant that at times we've done more than we needed to, right? So we've like
Mhm.
over engineered something.
Sure,
Um,
yeah.
but I think as a guiding principle, you like can't innovate if you're just copying other people.
That is true. I guess there is the downside that if you're only listening to the consumer and building what the consumer wants, the consumer needs are often, category level. So everybody in your category is solving for the same problems and ends up building the same thing. It leads to more sameness. So also you
Hmm.
need to, if you want to differentiate, need to have a perspective. They're doing that too. That maybe we want to invest elsewhere, or want to, be better, or at least have offer feature parity.
For sure. And I can tell you, like, when we first started, um, there was sort of a lot of comparison with intercom, and we made a deliberate choice there. Like we had 1/100th the funding of intercom, and so there's no way we could build for feature parity with them. It was just it would have been a fool's errand for us to try to build like a cheaper a knockoff intercom, and
Yeah,
start doing like in-app chat or something like that. And so
totally.
we've really stayed away from building features that make us look the same as others, because it's just impossible. It's impossible to sell.
Totally. And the intercom clones, of course, now there's a lot. And it's weird how on the surface you look at the intercom, it's like, what's the big deal? Emails, live chat, and it's overpriced. There's definitely room for a cheaper clone to come in. Yet all the clones that are in are just obviously worse products.
Hmm.
So it's like there's a lot behind the scenes, like that. I guess it's a complex product to build, actually.
Hmm. Yeah.
So tell me about competing with marketing. So, how are you attracting those tech savvy, advanced buyers that appreciate the feature set that you have to offer? How much of that is just word of mouth and people talking to each other, and how much is that you're actively, you know, out marketing others to lure those customers?
Yeah. I think marketing is an area where we've definitely underinvested. We're working on fixing that, and we're working on building a marketing team. That's one of our goals for this year. But we're really light on the marketing side of things now. What's worked for us though? So in the very early days, we did a bunch of content marketing, and that's all evergreen content now, and brings some people to the website. But I'd say by and large, what we hear from people who buy Customer IO is that someone told them about us. And
Yeah.
so the we invested really heavily in having a phenomenal customers team, so technical support, customer success, and just like delivering these fantastic experiences for people who have bought Customer IO, and trying to incentivize word of mouth, and
Mhm.
that's worked pretty well for us.
And are you doing like intentional partner marketing? Because like at CXL, we're a customer. We
Mhm.
heard about you through Hull, the CDP that we used. And they said, hey, you guys should use Customer.io for reasons. And so we did. So was that just a word of mouth incident, or is there active partner marketing going on?
No, there's active partner marketing, for sure. And I think like one area that we focused on are our CDP products. So, I mentioned at the beginning, data is a really core part of what we do. So if a prospective customer already has an integration with a CDP, it makes it very easy to get that data into Customer IO. So we do some marketing with CDPs, or well, I would say I don't know that we do marketing with them or pay anything for that. We have good relationships with them, and we have someone on
Right.
on our team who works with the folks on at our CDP partners, and make sure that they understand the value of Customer IO and who it's good for. And from time to time, we'll like do a presentation for their sales team and stuff like that. Um, and then in addition to that, we focus on early to mid stage businesses rather than enterprises. And so a lot of companies that are startups or very early stage businesses. They're picking their first stack to run and grow their business. We have some relationships and we do some marketing um, through like startup programs. So like
Mm.
uh, startup accelerators and the various like venture capital firms. We
Yeah,
have
I
some
see.
kind of.
This is more and more like a strategy. Intercom has that Intercom for startups, where it's like
Mhm.
90% off. HubSpot has the same. HubSpot though does it only for venture-backed startups, which is interesting.
Yeah, we have a
With
bootstrapper program as well. So, uh,
oh,
but
okay,
but I think like the our bootstrapper program, our product is pretty advanced, so it's not for everyone. But I didn't want to leave out like advanced bootstrapped companies because they didn't take any funding. That
yeah,
seems like a jerk move.
totally.
So yeah, we have that same offer or we have a similar offer for bootstrap companies.
So if we look at some of the companies that are doing innovative things, then it seems to happen still that you can't sustainably out innovate the competition. They'll match up with feature parity, so the options are going to be very similar, and often then customer is going to make the choice based on the brand. So
Mhm,
Tesla was category of one electric cars. Now lots of electric cars, but they still have the longer range advantage. But my bet is that give it another 2 years, Tesla's advantage will cease to exist, like the objective advantage, and then
mhm,
it's like BMW and Audi. There's no difference other than the brand. It's the same thing. Like Tesla will have to start competing on brand. Currently, they're doing $0 in advertising.
mhm.
I bet they will start advertising, kind of like Google in the old days didn't advertise. Now they do TV advertising. So how are you thinking about building the brand and brand as a mode?
Yeah, I mean, brand is really important to us. It's part of the part of the reason people join the company, is that we seem different than other companies. We've had the opportunity to go and raise a lot of money, but we've chosen not to do that, and we've been profitable for the past 12 months, not deliberately. We've been able to like break through and really scale as a business. And I think that in the early days, things like being a remote company, um, being lightly funded, and I never corrected the wrong information in like Crunchbase or like any of these other places. But from time to time, we'll get a customer who comes in and says, well, why should I pick you versus these people over here? They've raised over $100 million, and it says here that you've raised 4 point something or whatever.
Yeah,
And I think that that person is probably not the right fit for our company, and that's okay.
that would be a weird way to make a decision about a vendor. Yeah,
Yeah, and I think like one of the reasons we haven't raised a lot of money is I think that it I've seen it be bad for customers so many times, that especially if you look at companies that get acquired by private equity, they go and like jack up the prices. They turn into sort of like squeezing customer mode. And
right.
I think that one of the one of the things that we don't do a great job of talking about now, but one of the ways that we want to attract like-minded people is just by creating that feeling of trust that we're never going to screw you. Like we're doing everything we can to try to be a really great company to do business with for our customers, and we'll no matter how big we get, how successful we get, we're not gonna sort of turn it around one day and um and screw you over, or sell the business and then all of a sudden you've got to migrate away suddenly. um, there's sort of all of these things which you see happen, which I never want to do to our customers. And so I think
How
yeah,
much of that is just in your head as like, oh, well, this is my vision, but like, what are you, how are you actively signaling this? Like, what are you specifically doing?
yeah, I don't think we do a great job signaling this on the website to customers. We're working on it, and we're sort of working to improve that. But certainly, like the people on the team, they're they join the company and they work at this company because we're that type of company and not the other type.
There's an increasing trend with CEOs and or other executives, building a big personal brand. They're putting themselves out there and then using their platform to tell the story of the customer and then build brand affinity. Basecamp founders,
Hmm.
HubSpot's really good at this. Drift, Intercom is prolific writers on their blog. So, what about you guys? You thinking of telling your stories and what things that you were telling me now, like
Yeah, I
putting
mean,
yourself more out there, and why haven't you yet?
yeah, it's something that I debate a lot internally. Uh, I don't want to be the company, right? One of my goals with building Customerio is to build something that lasts beyond me. It's and if I make it all about me, then what is and and I am the brand. Then that in some ways that feels like, well, one, I the more visible I become, the less privacy I have. And so I really value like privacy and anonymity. And and so I feel very conflicted about that and whether or
Well,
not.
it's not like you're gonna become Hollywood level celebrity overnight,
Sure.
right? Like, it's
Sure.
like I think in marketing there are only two celebrities. There's like Gary V and Seth Godin, and then nobody else. Nobody knows. Everybody is a like a D level niche influencer, right? So I don't know if the privacy concern is a
Yeah.
significant concern to have, and you can certainly build your personal brand that is just an amplifier for the company. It's not Colin.io,
Yeah, and I think like that's the part that I'm comfortable with, and I'm exploring, but I'm also just sort of cautious about making it all about me and not about the company. Um,
Totally.
so, but yeah,
Yeah.
I think we need to do a better job of telling our story. For a long time, the to be honest, I felt like we were at like version 0.1 of the product. I think we're like at version 0.9 now of,
Yeah.
what we actually want the thing to be, and, what we're really proud to put out into the world. And it takes a long time to build a mature and very featureful product. And so we were, I don't like to be the type of person or company that is all bluster, but there's nothing there to back it up. And so some CEOs do that really, really well. I would rather have skew the other way and have the marketing be worse than the product in some ways, right? And then we can fix the marketing and level it up to the product. But if your marketing's up, really, I was going to say way up here, but I realized it's audio, not video, right? So if your marketing is like super amazing and your product is garbage, that's kind of a letdown. And I don't want to be that
Totally.
type of company. So we've always kind of undersold on the marketing.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Colin.